We move over here to the Mariners segment of the show. And like I talked about last week, whether it was on the back lots or, from the hotel room, we take certain aspects of these spring training games and, we look at those. Not so much looking at the wins and the losses, but more on the individual performances of players and their growth and how they might impact the lineup on a day-to-day basis at the major league level. So we go over here to the Mariners, and March 5th was a split squad game. Liv and I were at the game at Peoria against the Rangers, and we'll look at that. That was a 9-10 loss, unfortunately. Our player of the game, designated hitter Mitch. Garver, 1 hit, 2 runs, 3 RBIs, 1 homer, and 1 walk. We'll talk about it here a little bit once we get through the slate of games. But Garver is a guy who has performed well. He was brought in to be the day-to-day designated hitter, and he's looked like that. He has looked like that, whether it was when we saw him on the 5th, we talked to him afterwards. And he's hit well, and that's obviously what Seattle's needed over the past few years. Over in Surprise, no, that was in Goodyear, pardon me. The other half of the Mariners split squad was in Goodyear as they took on the Cleveland Guardians. That was a 1-4 loss. Our player of the game, second baseman Jorge Polanco. Polanco, 2 hits and 1 RBI, including that RBI that came in the first inning to put the Mariners ahead by a score of 1-0. They would allow the last 4 runs and answered and lose that one. I talked about Garver being an impact guy as a new addition. Polanco's hit well, and he should form a nice combo up the middle of the Mariners infield for the Mariners. When we get to the regular season, as long as he can stay healthy, that's been the concern with a lot of the additions this past free agency and offseason. We go to March 6th at the Kansas City Royals. That was an 8-7 win. Our player of the game for that one is former Royal left fielder Samad Taylor. Samad Taylor is another guy who was an offseason acquisition and is impressed so far this spring training for the Mariners. In this game, 2 hits, 1 run, 2 RBIs, and 1 homer in this game against the team that traded him away this past offseason. March 7th versus the Angels was a 5-0 win. There were a few offensive performances that were notable here and there, but the strength of this Mariners team is its pitching, and I went with right-handed pitcher and starter Brian Wu. Wu, 2 2/3 innings pitched, no hits allowed, no runs allowed, only 1 walk and 3 strikeouts on the day. Brian Wu's a guy who's got all the talent in the world, all the stuff when it comes to pitching. Just seeing him put it together on the big league level is what folks have wanted from him, and he's been able to do that. Did it last year, and really excited to see what he's able to do after this spring training in his his first full big league year, but second big league year. March 8th at the Cubs was a 5-9 loss. Our player of the game, catcher Cal Raleigh, big dumper, 1 hit, 1 run, 3 RBIs, and 1 homer. He hit that homer from the right side. Big homer there. Nice to see Cal. He had 2 strikeouts before this, kind of showed some frustration and took it out on that baseball as he delivered it into the stands there. March 9th at the Milwaukee Brewers, a 7-6 win. Our player of the game, center fielder Julio Rodriguez, 2 hits, 3 runs, 3 RBIs, and 1 homer in this game. Julio had that homer that I mentioned and a double, and really it was his first homer of spring, and is one of the few games since he's been dealing with the wrist injury that we mentioned last week. Looked good, looked like Julio. So nice to see that there. As I've kind of teased there with the mention of the additions, Garver and Polanco are guys that you expect to perform. Garver has had success when he's been healthy, at the plate. The Mariners really haven't had a full-time designated hitter since Nelson Cruz, who we'll talk about actually in a minute. So it's really nice to see him performing here. You want to see it translate to the major league level, to the regular season when results actually matter. In talking to Garver after the game, actually during the game, because during spring training, the starters will come out and then we get to talk to them right once they come off the field because they have the rest of the day to themselves. I asked Garver, I was like, is it nice to hit a homer against your former team? He was like, when we get to the regular season and it matters, then yes, it will mean something. I'm like, all right, that's fair enough. He's performed well. I mean, if you can get him to stay healthy and he can produce, I know he can be a catcher, but that's really the worst case scenario. If Raleigh and Zavala aren't able to be there, he looks great. He's hitting the ball hard. that's what you want. That's what you want from a designated hitter, and that's, when he signed that deal with the Mariners, that was the hope for Garver. So we're seeing that, which is nice. Samad Taylor is kind of a surprise. He was acquired shortly after the Polanco trade. It's kind of like, all right, this guy, he's got some speed. He can play a few different positions around the diamond, and he showed some power this spring, which is not something that I really expected. The Mariners have thrived with guys who come off the bench and can play a number of positions. Think of Dylan Moore. Think of Sam Haggerty. And Samad Taylor might be one of those guys who adds to that. So it'll be really interesting to see that. Again, he's shown some power. I really wouldn't be surprised if he breaks camp with the club this year. So we'll see about that. I mean, he's performed well at the AAA level as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's a guy who gets called up at some point either. Jorge Polanco, I mean, same thing with the designated hitter. You really haven't had a consistent second base presence since Robinson Cano, and it's been a while since we've had Robinson Cano here. And having a guy like Jorge Polanco who's had 30 home run per season power before, just looking for consistency there. And the big thing as well with him is people have been worried about his health. The Mariners haven't really sounded too worried about that or worried about keeping him healthy. They thought that the injuries that he's suffered have been outliers of sorts. So, again, you look at those three guys, and there are a few others that we're looking at as well with the offseason additions, but at least this past week, and that we were able to see up close with Garver, with Samad Taylor, and then with Jorge Polanco. Something to be excited about, and something I'm looking forward to seeing on a day-to-day basis, seeing how they make this ball club better, and their attributions to wins, a lot of wins, hopefully. So some unfortunate news with the Mariners that we got actually on Sunday, March 10th. We found out that right-handed pitcher Jackson Kowar was placed on the 60-day injured list with a right ulnar collateral ligament tear. He will have Tommy John surgery in Dallas next week. Just unfortunate. It seemed like he was going to be able to break camp, or at least hoping to break camp. He was acquired in a trade this past offseason. A guy that, you were hoping to see become another star, out of the bullpen, another addition for this pitching staff that, the coaching staff was going to be able to harness his ability, and just it's not going to be able to happen, at least not this year, it seems, because of this. It's tough. It's tough with pitchers. You're really trying to manage their usage. You're not trying to get them into positions like this where they have to have this surgery. And it's tough, especially with, I know we'll talk, well, this is a good time to mention it. Matt Brash and Gregory Santos are working into it. Brash is throwing catch at about 90 feet right now. It's a build up to where he should be in his throwing routine. Gregory Santos has been throwing bullpen. So with those guys, with Kowar out, the Mariners were looking for some help, and we'll talk to that here with another roster move, but we've got other team news before that. So we'll go into it. March 5th, it was announced that former Mariner Nelson Cruz will throw out the first pitch on opening day. It's a great time to show you a photo from last year's spring training of Cruz with the Padres, so we'll put that up here for you. It'll great to have Nelly around. Nelson Cruz was such a beloved Mariner for just his personality. Obviously, his nickname of Boomstick. He had the great hitting ability as well, and was one of the last real consistent designated hitters that we had, as I mentioned previously. So we'll look here. It's funny, they have projections for Nelson Cruz, but I don't think he's playing this year. Baseball Reference, yeah. So, I mean, he was with the Mariners from 2015 to 2018. You look at those years with the Mariners and his home runs, 44 homers with the Mariners in 2014, 43 in 2016, 39 in 17, 37 in 18. So he had that power, maxed out. His career high in RBIs was 2017 when he had 119. He never dipped below a 250 batting average, and even before that, he never dipped below 280. From 302, 287, 288. So Nelson Cruz was such a consistent offensive producer for the Mariners, and that's just one of the reasons why he was so beloved by the fan base. Other team news, with roster moves coming as we approach opening day. By the time you see this, we are 17 days out from opening day, which is pretty remarkable to think about. On the 6th, right-handed pitcher Brett DeGeis pardon me, was added to Major League Camp. It's funny because when we saw him on the 5th, he pitched in the game on the 5th. He didn't have the most success, kind of surprising that he was added to Major League Camp. That move put the Major League Camp at 60 players at the time, but the coaching staff obviously saw something that they liked, and so he was moved to Major League Camp. On the 9th, there were a few roster moves again as we continue to trim things down. Catcher Blake Hunt was optioned to AAA Tacoma. Hunt was acquired via trade in one of the first moves of the offseason, and he is kind of seen as the third catcher in the organizational depth chart at catcher. So it's Raleigh, Zavala, Hunt can get called up if Zavala's not performing or he gets hurt, or if Raleigh gets hurt, God forbid. Again, Mitch Garver, the plan for him is to be the day-to-day designated hitter. They would like to keep him as healthy as possible, and that means not having him catch. So there's that. 3 players were reassigned to Major League Camp: infielder Michael Chavis, outfielder Isaiah Gilliam, who performed well at the AAA level for the Tacoma Rainiers. So it'll be fun to see what Gilliam does with Rainiers this season, as well as utility player, infielder/outfielder Nick Solak. The other news that I mentioned with, having Brash and Santos working back from injury was that the team officially signed relief pitcher Ryan Stanek on Sunday to a 1-year deal. Stanek is 32. He's appeared in 7 Major League seasons with the Rays from 2017 to 2019, Miami from 2019 to 2020, and was previously with the Astros for the past 3 years in 338 career games, including 56 starts. The right-hander is 10-14 with 4 saves and a 3.45 ERA with 175 walks and 406 strikeouts. Last year, in 55 appearances out of the bullpen for the Astros, he went 3 for 1 with a 4.09 ERA with 21 walks and 51 strikeouts. He helped pioneer the opener position with the Rays, making 56 starts between 2018 and 2019 and posted a 2.71 ERA in those games. His 56 starts of 2 or fewer innings pitched are the most in Major League history. The right-hander also brings 23 games of postseason experience to the Mariners, going 3-0 with a 2.7 ERA with 6 walks and 21 strikeouts in those respective appearances, including 7 of those in the World Series from 2021 to 2022. So, there's a few things that are tough there. It's tough with Kowar because, again, as I mentioned, there was some thought that maybe he was going to be able to break big league camp with the Mariners. Kind of exciting, though, to see Stanek added. He was a guy who's been a pain to deal with before. Add some veteran experience, as we just talked about. Thank you to Mariners PR for those numbers. Always great to work with those folks. And, with the injuries to Santos, to Brash, with Kowar there, with Brash and Santos working back, though, and not to that, just adding more punch to the bullpen is great. A bullpen that's been one of the best year to year in all of baseball the past few seasons. It's great to add that. You add Santos, you lose guys like Sewald, like Topa. Unfortunate, obviously, but retooling so that those losses aren't just a net loss is nice to see. So with that, we did show it last week, but we'll run it again. We'll show you our talk with Harry Ford from spring training last week. So, Harry Ford, you were working with George Kirby back there. I just want to ask what it's like working with him, because we hear a lot about how intense the guy is, and obviously, an excellent pitcher, but what's your experience been like with George?
Working with George, he's really fun to catch. He can throw all his pitches whenever he wants to, wherever he wants to. And he's a great competitor out there. He's a battler, so it's always fun getting to catch someone as skilled and as competitive as he is.
Had a good year last year with the Sox. There was a playoff run, which I know you guys wanted to go further. And then this spring training, people have been excited by it. Throwing guys out from your knees, that sort of thing. How have you really seen your own growth, since being drafted by the Mariners?
I've grown in all areas. Grown as a player, grown as a man, and every day I'm learning something new. Getting to be around all the other guys that we have here has helped a bunch, and they teach me something every day. And so I've been growing a lot in all areas.
What have you seen? Because I just saw you guys were with Ty Pete as well, amongst a few other guys. You know, a lot of folks are excited by that draft class as well, with Colt Emerson and Johnny Farmello. Do you have any interaction with some of those guys? Obviously, with Spring, I'm sure you do.
Yeah. I see him around. We have a Bible study going on, and
really?
Johnny and Colt were there last night, so I went out to talk to them briefly. I see them around here and there. Don't always have time to talk, but yeah, they're good guys.
Then just to kind of start wrapping you up here, I know, Spring, it brings all the guys together from the organization. How much interaction have you had with Cal, and what have you been able to, like, moments share with him, maybe learn from him, or just kind of be around the guy?
Yeah, I mean, I do all my stuff with Cal. Catching wise, I'm always around him when he's catching, and in the locker room and stuff. He's taught me a lot just about how to be what it means to be a catcher, what it means to to try to be a leader, and he does the best by just doing it and showing the guys how it's done. So being around him is I'm lucky to be able to have that.
And then just to close you out here, you before we started, you talked about seeing you at the ballpark with the Mariners, and then obviously you spent the season with the Aquasox. What kind of sense have you gotten about Mariners fans? Because it's a big fan base. People get really excited, especially about some of the prospects as well. What has your interactions been like, and your thoughts on Mariners fans?
Well, I mean, the fans, they bring the energy every day. It's amazing getting to just see them in spring training, and even at just the Aquasox games, and on TV whenever we see the Mariners games. It's just a really amazing fan base who always supports the players and wants the championship to be brought. And they're really electric, really great people.
With that, and after hearing from Harry, we look ahead to the next week of games for the Mariners. As I mentioned, we are 17 days out from opening day on March 28th against the Boston Red Sox at T-Mobile Park. March 11th versus the San Diego Padres. The time of shooting this will have already happened. 1:10 p.m. start against the Padres at Peoria. Both teams share the Peoria Sports Complex, but the Mariners are the home team that day. March 12th at the Oakland Athletics is a 1:05 p.m. Pacific time start. March 13th at the LA Dodgers is a 1:05 p.m. start. March 14th versus the Milwaukee Brewers is a 1:10 start. March 15th at the LA Angels is a 1:10 start. And then we go to March 16th, which is a split squad day. They're at the Cincinnati Reds at Goodyear with a 1:05 p.m. Pacific time start, and then against the Chicago White Sox with a 1:10 start. Rounding out the week is March 17th versus the Arizona Diamondbacks, which is a 1:10 p.m. Pacific time start. Going to see which of these games will be on television. I don't think any of these games. Oh goodness. Oh yeah. Okay, we do have some of this, thankfully. So the Padres game is not on TV. Athletics isn't. Dodgers isn't. Ooh, goodness. Ooh. The White Sox game, that split squad game on the 16th against the White Sox, is a game on Root Sports, and then the game against the Diamondbacks is also on Root Sports. So there you go. I know a lot of folks have been asking about that, wondering about when are these games on TV. Unfortunately, not a lot, and especially not the ones that are during the week, just because there are not as many viewers. So